Welcome to another outstanding episode of Jofo in the Ring. And in the words of my sometimes broadcast colleague, Frank Jofo, here we go. See, unlike him, I actually said it like a civilized human being. But that's because, he and I, we're different. But deep down inside, we got a lot in common. One of the main things we have in common is our love of professional wrestling. And I think that that's something that we have in common with our next guest. A man who is something of a Renaissance man when it comes to the many endeavors that he's followed throughout his career. Someone who has gained notoriety in a number of different industries and is quickly gaining steam in the world of professional wrestling. You may know him as a member of the fantastic Shane Taylor Promotions. And today we're going to get to know a little bit more about my esteemed guest, the one, the only, the Reverend Ron Hunt. Ron, welcome to the show, my man.
I appreciate it, Jeremy. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm in high spirits here. We're having some pretty terrible weather outside, but on the inside, we are seeing nothing but blue skies and sunny days. So, it's really an honor to be able to have you on here. Heard nothing but good things about you. And anyone who's cool with my boy Shane Taylor, more than welcome on this show. Glad to roll out the red carpet for you any day, my man. And so wanted to, familiarize our audience with what you're all about, because in doing my research, I found out so many things about you. You've been involved. You pretty much have been in front of a camera for quite a while, even before your professional wrestling journey began. But I don't want to spoil the story here. I want you to put it in your words. The wrestling we can get to, but before wrestling, you did a lot, including being an actual ordained minister. So, yeah. I mean, give us your life story, man. Give us right from the beginning. And then how you got to wrestling.
The beginning came birth. Honestly, man, I've been very fortunate kind of, throughout the years of being on this earth to really been blessed with like a lot of opportunities. And I think that comes with the whole name, the Reverend Hunt, is just really letting people have a backseat ride in a POV version into my own personal life. And, kind of my own personal journey, my own personal faith walk. And really understanding me as a person and seeing how that now intertwines within the sport of professional wrestling 10 plus years later. So prior to that, I was actually doing a lot within radio, within television, working in TV reporting, hosting different shows, talking to different entertainers and everything. And but even when I was younger, man, I think that the love for wrestling started at a young age. But the one person that really got me connected with it to say I wanted to go from being a fan to being a part of the wrestling industry was Eddie Guerrero. And it was just something about how he was able to captivate the audience. He was able to just leave an everlasting impression on you, whether you were at a live show or whether you were watching through your TV screen. But he found a way to kind of narrow you in and lock you in and keep your attention and make you notice who he was. And even now, we're looking at, 15 plus years later, I think the world of professional wrestling and just the entertainment world as a whole is still dwelling and dealing and reeling with his death and seeing how we can now use his legacy to kind of keep that momentum going. So if it wasn't for me finding out, seeing Eddie Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero's Bash at the Beach in 1998, there may have been a later spark or there may have not been a spark at all to really interest me to take that next step forward in wrestling.
So, I mean, Eddie Guerrero's impact is undeniable. People still use his mannerisms. People still, use so much of what he brought to the table, even just like, seeing Dominic Mysterio on Monday Night Raw. There's so much influence that he brought. And I think one of the things that I myself really liked about Eddie Guerrero was he showed that it wasn't about, as the old expression says, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And I think Eddie Guerrero helped to open the door for people who are maybe not the biggest to be able to be seen as world championship caliber. And for me, Eddie definitely was a very big inspiration for that. His match with Brock Lesnar, I always tell people, that's in easily my top 5, probably my top 3 favorite wrestling matches. And even the whole build to that story. Were you watching at that time when Eddie had that moment where he became world champion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at that, it's often thrown around, but I really do feel like that was a big David and Goliath moment. I mean, you look at a person, an athlete like Brock Lesnar, and even now people are looking at him in his own respective way as still this monster that's been unleashed in this unstoppable force. And then you look at a person like Eddie. And so just like you said, when you look at it, especially during that time when it was very much more trending toward a big man's game, and you look at the presence of a person like Eddie Guerrero, he was the type that you kind of feel, just like you said, the size of the fight in that dog. That size of the fight was able to grow to the outward, and Eddie did not wrestle like he was his size. He stepped up to the occasion, he rose to the occasion, and a lot of times you've seen him get the job done by any means necessary. And I think that that's a mindset in and of itself, within the sport of professional wrestling. Even when you look at behind the scenes, what a lot of fans don't understand, how can we look at ourselves and see how we can rise past the occasion of adversity, of what someone feels like we don't deserve or what someone feels like we cannot attain? We try to get the job done by any means necessary and say, I told you so when it's all said and done. And I think that fighting spirit we saw in Eddie Guerrero all the way up until he passed away.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that story was one of the best stories ever told in WWE. And people might, they think of the David and Goliath aspect of it, but there's also how Eddie put a lot of his personal demons out for the world to see when he said that winning this championship is his way of, atoning for all the things that he did, everything that he had to overcome. And, he's been very candid about talking about his addictions and the what that did to his family and whatnot. And so to me, I love that there was that layer to it. And I go back to the promo that he cut on Brock leading up to that. And, talking about how, okay, the championship means one thing to you, Brock, but this is what it means to me, and this is what it means to my family. I'll be honest, watching that as a young man, I was even like, Brock is just so dominant. I can't see how Eddie's going to do it. And truthfully, I'm like, I didn't watch the pay-per-view. I'm like, it's just going to be so heartbreaking to go from him saying that, and if he doesn't get it done. And then when I remember, I think I went to school afterwards the next day, and people were all telling me, oh, man, did you see it? It was amazing. Eddie Guerrero won. He did it.
You said, what, man? I should have watched it.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how did he win? What do you mean? Like, what? Brock must have slipped on a banana. But no. Like, Goldberg got involved and he hit him with the frog splash. He pinned him 1, 2, 3. He actually did it. And to me, I mean, I think that was one of the greatest stories. I don't know if they intended for it to go that way right from the start. If they did, kudos to them. But it was such everything coming full circle. And I think that it launched Eddie Guerrero into being the star of SmackDown at the time. And it was great.
Absolutely. And when you look at it, and I think you even look at now, just like you said, you're seeing shades of that within Dominic Mysterio that had a story in and of itself. And when you look at the rich history, and I think one of the best stories that he told, leading up to when he passed away, was him versus Rey Mysterio. And so it's been very cool, I guess throughout the last few years or so, to have different opportunities to be able to talk to different influential athletes that help make me the performer, the entertainer, the wrestler that I am today. And just be able to have that full circle moment of closure and let them know their importance and their worth within this business. We often say, and I tell a lot of my training students, I help train a professional wrestling academy here in Pittsburgh. I tell them at the end of the day, it's a whole pay it forward business. And if there's not a way that you're trying to bring something back full circle and then continue to pay it forward, then what in the world are you doing with the business? For me, man, having opportunities throughout the last couple of years to sit down and thank Rey Mysterio, talk to him, let him know his importance, and a list of others I've been very fortunate to share opportunities with. Those are things you can't make up, but I'm fortunate for those opportunities that only pro wrestling could have offered me to be able to have those moments.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I have a bit of a Rey Mysterio story myself. I actually wrestled Rey. And I did get to exchange some positive words with him, but I exchanged a few negatives as well because as a fan growing up watching WCW, I didn't like Rey because Rey was he would always beat all the other luchadors, and like, man, I was a fan of Juventud, I was a fan of Psychosis, La Parka, like almost everyone except Rey. Like, don't get me wrong, when I first saw Rey and Dean Malenko, that blew my mind. Rey was doing stuff I didn't even think was possible in a wrestling ring, and I probably wouldn't be the wrestler I am today if it weren't for Rey Mysterio. But I hated that he was just always beating up on all the other luchadors, and then finally got a chance to work with him. But I absolutely loved Rey's work when he came to the WWE, and much like Eddie, he showed that it's not the size of the dog in the fight. And Rey put on some of the best matches in WWE against guys that, people would think he wouldn't have a chance against, guys like Kane and guys like Mark Henry. And, Ray was, I would say Ray was ahead of his time when he first showed up. But, man, when the game caught up to him, he was still just ahead of it.
Still going.
Yeah. And tremendous talent. I'm glad you brought him up, actually. Kind of want to shift the discussion more, back to you. You were already pretty accomplished when you came into the wrestling game. Tell the people, what were some of the other, I know you mentioned it a little bit about radio, television. I also was in radio. My education is actually, it's in journalism. So people think that, just this podcast is kind of my first rodeo, but
nah, you've been in the game.
Oh man, I've been in the game since I'd say 05, 06, doing radio broadcast back when radio was the only form of podcasts that existed. Doing AM radio, talk radio, and then got into the podcast thing pretty early on, but didn't really see the value in it. Talking back in like 08, 09, around then when podcasts were really just a kind of a growing thing. And lo and behold, you can't, I guess you never really fall out of love with your first love. So as I'm doing the wrestling here, I am back behind the microphone. But you as well were in broadcast, television, radio, theater as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole Spain. That's actually a good one, man. Not many people actually knew that or brought that up. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I definitely did. My fair share of a little bit of everything. Just as you said, within broadcast news, and believe it or not, I actually started within radio. So I still run a freelance voiceover company on the side that I help with here and there, and have my agent that helps me out with different bookings and everything, to keep things fresh when I'm not body slamming people all around the ring. But yeah, man, it was one of those things, similar to yourself, had a degree in broadcast journalism, started within radio. Really, when we seen kind of the transition of that, and when you're looking at, okay, how do you have more sustainability in a field that's so aggressive and competitive like a media field? You look at ways to transcend yourself and keep yourself alive and keep yourself a little bit flexible and visible. So I made a kind of a decision to, okay, I'll still do some form of radio voiceover, but at the same time, let me now dabble a little bit further into the TV realm of things. And I had some very, very cool opportunities, from interviewing Tyra Banks, covering the Stanley Cup Finals, you name it. Even creating my own talk show at one point. And so to be able to kind of do that, I think that also gave me a little bit of an extra edge when it came to getting into the business. And I got into the business in 2011. I was down in Florida. I was trained by Alpha the Wild Simone at Wild Simone Pro Wrestling Training Center. And but even before that, I felt like my edge was, respectfully, not your typical 9 to 5. And as you know how that is, like, not everyone can say, oh, what did you do for a full-time job? Oh, I worked as a radio host. I worked on I was on TV. Not many people can say that. And I think that was something that I had to really dive into and use it as a secret weapon. And so when it came to having those moments of once during these shows and having these opportunities to talk on the mic, it was like, okay, now I got to go back into this and bring some of this out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And kind of a full circle moment, if you think about it, really the best of both worlds, that I think kind of helped me. But at the same time, in the earlier stages of that, I was also still within TV. So when it came to doing stuff live, they're like, hey, you can trust Ronell. Just let them know, like, hey, we got this amount of time to fill, and you can trust them. And I said, I can also thank pro wrestling for that. When you're going through these different promo classes and everything, and being able to think on your feet and keep your composure and just be comfortable with breathing and having a beat without having to fill it with a bunch of filler words and everything. And some of that only happens, as you know, either taking some type of courses through it or, constantly honing your skill and being able to get after it. So I think they both complement each other throughout the time.
Yep. No, I mean, they go hand in hand when you think about it, because wrestling is entertainment. So having those skills already in your back pocket once you step into training is definitely going to give you an edge. I mean, so many people these days, they concentrate on the physical aspect of professional wrestling. And don't get me wrong, it's a sport, but there's so much more than just what goes on from bell to bell that makes for compelling entertainment, especially when on television. Because I mean, it's a TV show, so you're competing against other TV shows, not necessarily other sports. I mean, on a Monday night, you're competing probably against both. You got TV dramas, and you got Monday Night Football, and then you got Monday Night Raw. So yeah, you need quite a plethora of skills to be able to appeal to the audience, to the common man who's sitting there and channel surfing, and oh, what's this? You know, could be wrestling that catches attention, could be a great promo, could be a great segment. So having those definitely, yeah, gives you that edge. You know, I feel like you and I, we got a lot in common because, again, you had done theater. I had also done theater, comedy, improv, journalism, radio broadcast. I saw you did some sports too. Actually, I saw you. I saw amongst other things you were a baseball player. I as well was a baseball player.
Hey, you never know, man. We might be twins or cousins or something. I don't know, man. I gotta check the family tree.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, we're probably around the same shade here, so who knows? But
yeah, man, it was one of those cool things. You know, even going through high school, you know, I did base. I was really a tri-sport athlete: baseball, basketball, and football, and then carried football all the way through college until I graduated. And you know, I think that also had a little bit to do with it. You know, also is really coming with that competitive mindset, not thinking, I like wrestling, let me just try this, and not having an opportunity to look at it in the eyes of a competitor. And as you know, it's one of those things to where, you know, kind of once you get in some form of athletics, it's very hard to let the athlete side of you die. You're always going to find yourself, if you're not competing against one person, you're competing against yourself. And you kind of hold yourself to a higher standard. It starts to become a part of your DNA as an athlete. So I think that was also a portion of it too, when it came to really having to grind down and have that go-getter mentality and try to get the job done by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that you guys in Shane Taylor Promotions share right across the board. You know, talking to Shane, talking to Kaun, I see that you guys have that killer instinct, that competitiveness. And, you know, I know there's a segment of the wrestling community that doesn't necessarily share our mindset. You know, they're more kind of sit around the fire, roast marshmallows, kumbaya. But to me, you know, I think that healthy competition is what brings out the best in everybody. And, you know, you got to be gunning for that top spot, or, you know, whatever is going to improve your position and your standing within a company. And I think that if everyone shares that mindset, you know, it's like a team. You know, it's going to bring out the best in everyone. You know, Michael Jordan would always push the guys that were on his team to perform better, and that's why the Bulls were a dynasty. You know, it's probably why the Pittsburgh Penguins also won a lot of championships. If I'm not mistaken, you being a Pittsburgh guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, are you still in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, you know, it's all about just as you stated. You know, I couldn't put it any better. Really, that mindset on, you know, how you're going to get the job done. And a lot of people always asked us, you know, on different ones, you know, just that sometimes people don't know what it is. They just say, well, it's something about you guys that's different. And respect to any other group, any other stable, any other unit that's out there. But we try to tell them, I tell you one thing that's different is we're not machine made. We were made by ourselves that had an opportunity with the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole nother ball game when, you know, you're put together and, you know, certain people want to see things work in certain levels of the office, or if you're already coming in with a cohesiveness because you only knew how to grind through the struggle. And you always want someone in your corner that knows what it's like to be in your shoes, understands the same mindset, and then not only wants to just go through a woe is me, because it's very easy to do that, but say, hey, this is how we're going to overcome. Here's where my mindset is. Where is your mindset at? Let's get this done together. And then everyone thinking as a collective unit. And so when you look at the Shane Taylor Promotion, you look at Kaun, Moses, O'Shea Edwards, Shane, myself, it's all of us thinking with our own individual minds, having our own individual strengths, but however, still thinking and coming together collectively to get the job done. You know, I said it's like, you know, you have a bunch of different flavors of ice cream, but when you put it together, it makes one glorious flavor, and it makes one glorious thing happen. And that's what you deal with when you come to Shane Taylor Promotions. You have everyone that has a little bit of a strength here. If a brother has a weakness here, this brother's using his strength to pick that piece up. And so we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, but we're not competing against each other. We're helping to build each other up. And I think that that's a lot of things that you see as a lost form within teams and units within the sport of professional wrestling today.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that it's great that you guys have each other's backs. And like you said, if someone maybe has a strength that's someone else's weakness, they can help to pick them up. And, that's the mark of any good team or any good teammate. So that's definitely something that you guys are doing well, and it shows. Speaking of Shane Taylor Promotions, like I said, we had Kaun on. I've had Shane on twice. I think very highly of both of them. And I like the message that you guys put forward. But when Shane was on, he had alluded to the current situation with Shane Taylor Promotions. Obviously, Kaun now a part of AEW. So one of your brothers has moved on to somewhere else. You guys are kind of back in a position where the machine is no longer behind you, which you guys have never needed the machine. You guys were a unit from before. So how does it feel for you right now being in this position? What does that mean for the future of Shane Taylor Promotions? Where are you guys going? What do you have in sight?
Absolutely. I think when a lot of people look at it as a challenge, we look at it as a form of peace. I think this is the type of stuff that really breeds us. And I think that that was one of the main things that really had people resonate with us, that helped us build the community of supporters that we have today, is people understood we came from their backyard.
Mm.
And, you're looking at a guy like O'Shea Edwards, born and bred within the Georgia area, now living within Maryland. Moses now living within Maryland. Shane from Cleveland, living in Texas right now, myself in Pittsburgh. So it's not like we were born with a silver spoon in our mouth. So when we built this collective community of supporters, they realized, hey, these are people that live right in our backyard. These tell people as, we're not people that came from, your LAs or your New Yorks, or any of the bigger cities or anything. And respect to anyone that's ever came from those areas. But, we're coming in from places that, okay, I heard, a couple of good names from Pittsburgh, or I heard some people, oh, wow, he's from Cleveland. Wow, now he lives in Texas, and he built all of this based off of his own back and his work and everything, from Maryland. The list goes on. So when you look at what we're doing, to other people, it might be uncomfortable. But to us, it's just another day in the office. We were made in trenches like this. So when you look at where's the future at, it doesn't sweat us. Actually, everything has been moving, if not even busier now, because we've had the flexibility of making decisions on our own. And like, all right, if we can do good business, and if things line up, we'll we can put some work in. And that's what we've been doing. So I think that that's the thing that really makes, and I think right now is a very crucial time for us to really look at what we've been doing, look at what's been going good, look at what's been going great, and seeing how we can crank it up even further. And I think that right now is really a telltale sign of us being at a point to where we can really show our worth and our durability.
Mhm.
And I would be lying if I said we have not seen that time and time again. If we pull up to somewhere, and sometimes executives are scratching their head like, whoa, okay, this really is a movement.
Mhm.
And that's what we've been doing since day one. So that's going to continue. It's no sweat off of our back. We always support our brother Kaun. We message him, he messages us. We're all connected in the group chat on a daily basis. And our whole thing is STP is first a mindset. I think what a lot of people see when they hear Shane Taylor Promotions, or anything toward that extent, they just think the unit or what they could physically see. But it all starts with a mindset, and it all starts with a gut check. So our whole motto is once a part of Shane Taylor Promotions, always a part of Shane Taylor Promotions. And that's how we keep it running.
Mhm. I mean, it's very nice to hear such a positive take on the situation, because I know there's a good section of the fan base, there's a good section of the culture that's very up in arms about the fact that, Ring of Honor, you guys are doing great business. You guys are doing fantastic. Even for me, for a guy up here in Montreal, Canada, who would have, loved to be down there fighting in the trenches right by your side. Unfortunately, borders, work visas, and other things like that kind of prevent that from happening. Wouldn't be an episode of Jofo in the Ring with Jeremy Prophet without at least one mention of that. Might be the only one, maybe not. But with that said, I could see what you guys are doing. And I mean what you were doing for the culture, for representation, at a time where it was sorely needed and is still sorely needed throughout this sport. So that resonates with me. I can't help but feel that Ring of Honor, regardless of who owns it, Ring of Honor in any form, without Shane Taylor Promotions, that is a huge omission. And it's one that hasn't gone unnoticed. Does any part of you, feel slighted in any way that Ring of Honor would suddenly come back to fruition, but you guys not being a part of it?
I think at the end of the day, for whatever reason, business is always going to be business. But, you also have to look at the sense of common sense. And one thing that my trainer often said, he said, the fans are always going to be the boss, and you should listen to them. Now, to a certain extent, though. But what he meant by that is, we can, for example, in matches, we can plan all the spots that we want. But if it doesn't resonate with the fans, it's not a good match. They're just going to sit on their hands. We can get all of our stuff and they're just going to sit on their hands. But vice versa, when you take that to the next level, if you look at and if you just listen to the fans, and even we were at Ring of Honor, Ian Riccaboni, Caprice Coleman, one of the most notorious matches that you felt the energy. We were in the historic ECW arena, the 2300 arena. And I remember very distinctly the floor when we came out was rumbling. You can feel the energy and the presence rumbling. And I remember Ian Riccaboni saying, listen to that crowd. They want STP. They love STP, and this roof is blowing off of it. As we turned to our left, and a fan had a sign saying STP runs the world. So when you look at that, you also have to be mindful of what the fans are saying. It's one thing if you have a group of gentlemen or you have a group of ladies that are saying it, but it's another thing when collectively you have a strong batch of fans from all walks of life, not just people of color, saying, well, where in the world is Shane Taylor Promotions? And so the common sense of that is you have to look at, number one of the most dominant reigns and one of the most successful reigns in all of, respectfully, the Ring of Honor six-man championship runs has been Shane Taylor Promotions. Prior to the buyout, now with them being owned by AEW, the faction of the year that is fully documented, voted by the people, was Shane Taylor Promotions. So it's very hard to think that fans are going to forget about that when it's right in front of their face, and especially if it's that recent. And then, wonder why they're not there. You cannot get upset by that when the people are telling you what they want. So to us, is it a form of frustration? I'm not going to lie. It has been. I think more in the sense of us trying to make it make sense. But at the end of the day, you can't dwell in that. You have to use that and say, hey, business is business, because it is what it is. And what is the next successful move that we can do as businessmen? Because at the end of the day, it's not just a stable, but Shane Taylor Promotions is a whole LLC in business. So once we go about that, a winner has to put their eyes back forward and focus on the next finish line ahead. And somewhere down the road, if that is the new Ring of Honor, so be it. It'll be a great time. If it's another company and organization on the national television level, so be it. It's going to be a great time. But no matter where we are, we will stick our flag again. We will make a significant impact no matter where we're at.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely think so. And, put me in the category of saying that, yeah, you guys definitely, should be there. You should be on a national platform. You guys are self-made, and I totally respect the fact that you guys took the ball, ran with it. Even if they weren't going to give it to you, y'all took the ball and made it work, and have been making it work to the point where people are still talking about it now, being close to a year removed from national TV exposure. So it's still in movement, and there's still a demand. And I think that anyone who is not capitalizing on this is simply leaving money on the table, plain and simple. So I got to ask you about the Reverend and Reverend Ron Hunt, okay? Because you are ordained, you are an actual Reverend.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not mistaken, unless my research was outdated, you're continuing your studies as well.
That's completely outdated. No, I'm joking with you. No, everything is fully accurate. Everything is fully accurate. Yeah. But yeah, man, that's that's been something I've been licensed since about 2011. And then I've been ordained since about 2017, 2018. And that was really the whole mindset. And contrary to naturally what we can naturally see in this business, of some that do try to use that in some form or fashion as a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's not a shtick. It's the same, and that's why Caprice and I get on. Caprice is like a literal big brother of mine, both in and out of the business. Known him for years, completely love him, and a mentor of mine. And so when with me, I wanted that name because I wanted opportunities to have conversations like this, and for people to be able to just have a comfortable dialogue about this. And what I try to tell people is, naturally, as human beings, rather we have a religious belief or not, we all operate off of faith. And what I mean by that is, every time that we go to work or we come home, we sit on our couch, we sit in a chair at work. We don't flip the chair over and check to see if all the screws are tightened. We just sit on it and trust them, because it is a word called chair that is going to support our body weight. That's operating by faith right there. We operate by faith by just standing up and thinking, because these are legs, it's going to support my whole body weight. So those are different types of conversations that I try to have with people. But not only that, but even if you take the actual form of religion out of it, the reason that I wanted to use the name of the savior of professional wrestling, the Rev Ron Hunt, however they deem to coin me now, is because I really do feel like we went into a time that a lot of our brothers and sisters in this business have been struggling. And we've all come through some type of struggle or some type of something. And I felt like I was placed in the business at a very crucial time, that I said, if I could just use the strength that I have to even just make somewhat of a significant positive change, no matter what company I'm at, and just change one life, I've done my job. And that's been my whole mission. No matter where I've been, by the time I leave this business, by the time I fully retire, even though they say wrestlers never retire, I want to leave this business as a whole better than when I got into it and when I found it. And, how does that start? I just have to start one person at a time, and it first has to start within me. So that's been the whole mindset about it, man, is really just leaving my form of an impact, and seeing what I can do to just try to leave some form of positivity on the sport of professional wrestling, make sure we keep it alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's very well said, and I can totally agree with what you're saying about faith in its many forms, not necessarily having to always be faith in a higher power or in a godlike figure, but just, the daily faith that we accord to every step that we take here on this planet that we all share. I myself come from a very, very diverse religious background, being that I have a Jewish father and a very Christian mother. So growing up in my household was very interesting because of that. But no, I was, I was in the church, and, I studied the hymns, the Psalms. I would not put my knowledge on any level close to yours, so that you've dedicated your studies to this. But I've been a person who's always walked by faith, and it's interesting in the world of professional wrestling because, not to say we're few and far between, but, a lot of people have this stigma of professional wrestling and of the people who do it. And maybe it's because, the previous generation didn't exactly leave the best lasting impression as to what a professional wrestler is, or the stereotype of what a professional wrestler is supposed to be. Where I'm going with all this is, for you on your journey, has that ever been something where you've encountered people and they just kind of look at you and say, well, you're an actual reverend, why professional wrestling? So why professional wrestling?
Yeah, honestly, that's a good question. I think when you look at it, and I often bring this up. There's actually a scripture of a man that found himself wrestling with God himself and wrestling with his calling, and pretty much refused to let go until he was able to be blessed. And so what I really try to tell people is, believe it or not, there was wrestling even in the Bible. Maybe not quite putting the WWE Heavyweight Championship on the line, or we are acknowledging Roman Reigns. but when you really look at it, some people did ask that question. And I try to tell people, with the ideal cookie cutter principle of not all the time what we see, but what is the ideal story of pro wrestling, is a good versus an evil. And somewhere within that, we're always battling something that it looks like we might not win. But then there's a story of overcoming. There's a story of fighting from underneath. There's a story of staying alive. There's a story of getting the support of everyone around you and saying, we're going to do this thing together. And here's how we're going to win this. And so even when you look at that through pro wrestling, rather we have a belief in a higher power or not, we are telling a story of overcoming. We are telling a story of us having faith in ourselves that we're going to overcome this when to other people they said, there's no way he's going to win this one. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But the story is, no matter how many times you fall, guess what? If that person loses, I guarantee they'll be back next show. I guarantee they'll be back after that, and they'll be fighting just as hard. So what I try to tell people is, when you think about it, believe it or not, pro wrestling and religion do have some form of a connectivity there, whether we've ever thought about it or not. And that whole thing first starts with us just looking deep down within ourselves and say, what are we fighting for? What is the purpose? So for me, my whole personal thing is, if I can share my testimony through what I'm able to do in the ring, or just being able to use my gift to even just be able to talk to one person, let one person know that I'm there for them if they fall in the lowest points of their life, whether that's a fan, whether that's whether that's an office official, whether that's a fellow wrestler, a brother or a sister. If they could just know that I'm there for them, I've done my job.
And have there been any instances where you've had to witness to your colleagues or other members of the locker room, where you've had to be that shoulder for them to lean on? Is that a common thing?
You know what? I've lost track, honestly, how many times this happened. But I think one of the most beautiful stories, believe it or not, was a good friend of mine by the name of Chris Taylor. And he had his own history and his own past in and of itself, even years prior to when we met. And he's not ashamed to tell his story in regards of drug addiction, alcoholism, certain things. And even just to see him slowly change his life around prior to meeting me. But then I've been very fortunate that once we were able to meet each other through the art of wrestling, that we were able to kind of continue that course on the up and up. So much so that we've been best friends for years now. When I say that, I mean, I just married him and his wife a few years ago in Disney. This is a gentleman that I had a 2-year-long storyline with. It was versus career in a steel cage match. So you're looking at a storyline of us, wrestling years, transcending companies, being, worst enemies for the sake of in front of the camera, but behind the scenes, we couldn't have been any closer. And it was just through that story of me being there. But I've been very fortunate, and even now it's still humbling to even have fans come up to me. And believe it or not, one of those fans I consider a good friend. I married her and her husband. But it all started with that connection of them coming up to me during intermission. And the very first question I hear is, "So, are you really a reverend?" Yeah, yeah, I am. And what I tell people is, I'm connected with church. Sometimes, I'll be preaching, I'll be speaking. Other times, I might be playing, percussion for a choir. Sometimes I may be working on our sound, because I do a few things with our sound technicians. But the whole main thing is, it comes in all shapes and sizes. You're not going to see me in a suit and a white collar every single day. You'll see me in some jeans and a Shane Taylor promotion city. You'll see me in some wrestling gear. But the thing is, you're always going to get the authentic me. You're going to get the real me. You're not going to get the fake. And I think that was the main thing that a lot of people really appreciated. And that even now that I try to talk to youth groups and et cetera about is, people don't want to see perfection. They want to see transparency. They want to be able to know that, hey, if I went through this, and I was brought through all of this, then the same can happen to you. They want to know that people like them can still overcome, could still overachieve. There's no secret sauce to it. There's no secret weapon to it. So my whole thing is, no matter what, always be transparent. But I've lost track, honestly, how many stories I've had of people coming up and us just sharing, those stories of them sharing the darkest moment of my life, and them being surprised. And I'm not like, oh man, that's terrible. No, we're going to talk about it because we're all humans.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to tell you that it doesn't stop here, because if you're allowed, that means you got another opportunity to get after it and be great.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it sounds like you're someone, the kind of person that is in need in this wrestling business. We need more guys like you in locker rooms.
That's an honor, brother.
I'd even go as far as to say, regardless of your wrestling, regardless of what you bring to the table, you're a good human being. And I think that wrestling needs more good human beings in locker rooms. And, maybe if they had more, we wouldn't have situations like company executives wanting to punch each other in backstages because of things said in press conferences and whatnot. Maybe if there were a few level-headed, people who could be that, person to quell the situation and remind people what's really important in this, we wouldn't be dealing with those kinds of things. But definitely, I'd go as far as to say, I've seen your work, and I'll vouch for that any day of the week, much like all of your brothers in STP. But more important than that, you're a quality human being. And if anyone here north of the border asks, I'll say, hey, you know what? You got a great guy here, a great asset to your locker room because of the quality of human being that he is.
Much love. I think that's a true honor, man. Thank you for those kind words, brother.
It's the truth. I'm the harbinger of truth. I only speak the truth, and I can see that. And I can see that, yeah, man, I can see why Shane has you as a part of his stable, in and out of the ring. You're an asset, 100%. With that said, I assume you currently follow wrestling still. You follow WWE, AEW.
Yeah. Hey, unfortunately, I always follow. Which means I lack sleep. There's a lot of wrestling to follow.
There is. Oh, believe me. I spend my weeks while watch, and that's not even getting into the indie stuff. But and I'm not just doing that because as I'm a journalist here. I'm doing it because wrestling. I want to be successful at this. So you got to know what's out there. You got to know what people are doing, and be able to stay ahead of it. Be able to reinvent yourself. And I think that to want to make it into a major company, you got to offer something that they don't have. So that's one of the main things that keeps me watching, even though I'll see some programming that, might not be to my taste. I might find it a little boring. It's like studying, it's like getting ready for an exam. The stuff that you're studying is not necessarily the most interesting, but it's work. It's part of your job.
Yeah, man, you may not like it, but you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to professional wrestling, who are some of your favorite guys to watch?
Yeah, I would say right now there's a whole slew of them, and I know not only, watch the current stuff, but even still watch some of the past stuff. So when you're looking at, currently, I have to say there's a flavor for a little bit of everybody. So when you look at your WWEs, when you want to look at how to properly tell a story or how to build a moment that eventually gets people more invested, you can find some things for your WWE. Honestly, and it's just not me being biased. I think right now we're seeing the best version of Roman Reigns that we can possibly see, just in regards of the confidence, his demeanor, how he's able to carry himself, his deportment, and everything toward that extent. If you go over to Impact Wrestling, I think one of the top guns right now that I think is still overlooked is Trey Miguel. You got my good brother Ace Austin. Him and I were co-trainers, and we were both in Dayton at the same time. We were helping with Believe Wrestling Academy that was with Zachary Wentz. When you look at even other companies like AEW, a good brother that's a Pittsburgh native, came from that same wrestling academy that I'm an assistant trainer at. Lee Moriarty, easily one of the top wrestlers within the North American. I've had an honor to share the ring with him multiple times. So, I think there's a plethora, a little bit of everyone. Even when you look back in the time, you look at names such as Sweet Daddy Siki, talked about it before, the late, great Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Taz. The list goes on, a little bit of a sprinkle of everything. But, I often try to tell people, find what you want to be. What you want to bring to the table of professional wrestling. And then you'll be able to find a little small piece of everything, almost from every company for the most part, that's able to match the flavor that you're trying to bring. But as long as you stay true to yourself and not try to mirror it, but take a little bit of something and then recreate it and make it your own. And I think that's the main thing. So to really put it narrowed down, if you're looking at, 5 or so wrestlers, it is very hard to. But I can tell you that there's a lot of them. Your Kofi Kingston's, Xavier Woods, and the list goes on. That's really out there, absolutely killing it. Absolutely killing it.
Yeah. And no, it's great to hear that so many guys are doing so well. Like you said a little while ago, we came through a dark age here in wrestling, and I'd even go as far as to say we came out of another one. Which is twofold. And maybe I'm going to be a little outspoken here, but I feel like we just came through a very good time where we had lots of job opportunities in wrestling with the boom with AEW, tons of guys were getting jobs, getting opportunities. And then, with WWE suddenly deciding that now we're going to only hire people who've never wrestled before, which I personally believe was an asinine decision. I equate it to the NFL suddenly saying we're not going to hire guys out of university football anymore. We're going to just hire people who've never played the game a day in their life, but were great athletes in other sports. And then suddenly now half the job opportunities in the industry kind of just went away because WWE is, at least half the game, if not more. But I think now, and having gotten through COVID, I think we're about to hit another boom once again because, WWE's back to hiring wrestlers, AEW, they're gaining ground. There's lots of opportunities in Japan, overseas, tons of places. So I think that, regardless of where we all end up, who knows? I think that there's going to be a lot of great opportunity, and there's going to be opportunity, I would say, for you and I to probably either be standing across the ring or on the same side somewhere down the line.
Happen if we can.
I would love for that to happen. I got a few things brewing over this next little while, and we'll see where that takes me. But I know for certain it's actually going to take me south of the border, at least the Canadian border here, because I'm going to be relocating to Atlanta and the Nightmare Factory for till the end of the year. So being down there, I got a lot of opportunities to cross paths with a lot of the people I've had the chance to speak with here. And, with that said, I'd love to have a match with you anytime, any place, my man.
Absolutely. Hey, I'll be in touch. You can hold me to that. We're going to put that live on the air, man. I'll be in touch with you for sure.
Awesome. I'll shoot you a follow. You can shoot me a follow back and put me in touch with some promoters. I'll put you in touch with some, and hopefully we can make this happen because I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing, all of you in Shane Taylor Promotions. And definitely I think we could all work to bring out the best in each other and do some magic in that squared circle.
Absolutely, man. That's been the name of the game, man. Our whole mindset is, there's room at the table for everybody to eat, And I use that hashtag so many times. Everybody eats, and everyone's like, well, what exactly does that mean? And as I said, honestly, what we've been doing, and even when we held those Ring of Honor World Six-Man Championships, has been to bring notoriety to people, to companies, to individuals as a whole as wrestlers that many people may have not heard about, if anyone at all. And to really just showcase what's out there and say that, hey, you don't have to cut someone down in order to be successful, man. So everything you're saying, man, I'm 100% about it. Shane Taylor Promotions is 100% about it. And that's the bloodline of what we do as a promotions.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, have you ever been up to Canada?
I have not, but you are on the bucket list. I'm right in the middle of renewing that passport. So best believe it's happening.
Awesome. And you said right now you're in Pittsburgh, right?
Yep. Right in the Pittsburgh area, man. But we travel all over the place. Now, if you're asking O'Shea if he's ever been to Canada, he was just in Winnipeg. So he made a couple things down there, man. But we are looking to do a few things. Actually, it's very interesting. One of the companies down here, Renegade Wrestling Alliance, RWA, I just won their World Heavyweight Championship last week or so. And right now, I want to say 2, 4, 6. We got about 6 or 8 flags on there, and so I need to repolish up the Canadian flag on there. But then also, I got a few other areas I'm looking to put on there as well.
So how does that work? Does that mean you got to defend it in the country, or you got to defend it against somebody from the country?
No, we got to defend it in the country.
In the country, okay.
Yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it. So I will be putting. And this is the first time I said this on the podcast, but I will be putting the Costa Rican flag on there as of next year, hopefully, if I'm fortunate enough to keep defending it. So we'll see what happens. But I plan on adding. I think they're going to have to add a couple more side plates, man, because I plan on putting some mileage on that World Championship.
Yeah. Well, I've been wanting to get Shane himself up here, but also get him up here with a few of y'all. So I travel from coast to coast. I mean, just this week alone. I don't know when this episode's going to air, so it'll probably be outdated. But if you know a bit of our geography, which I'm sure you do, because you're an educated, very astute gentleman, I'm going out to British Columbia, which is out west. I'm doing Saskatchewan the very next day. And then I'm hitting Ontario, which is a little closer. I can just do about a 7-8 hour drive to get to my destination. But yeah, I mean, I go coast to coast here in the country. I'm one of the few that does it. Not because I'm anything special. I'm just blessed to, be able to have the time to do it.
Yep.
But with that said, I can definitely put the word out there with a lot of the promoters to say, hey, let's get STP up here in Canada. Let's get my man Ron Hunt. Let's get Shane. Let's get O'Shea. Let's get them all. You know, if we can fit them all.
For sure, man. Let them know that a lot of times, this is what we've been working on with a lot of organizations, man. If they're looking to bring us in as a unit, man, we also do seminars as a whole unit. That's really trust me, a big bang for the buck. There's not going to be anything that kills anyone's pockets, but to have everyone there collectively to answer any questions in regards of building a brand, in-ring work, character development. When it comes to us doing the whole entire Shane Taylor promotion seminar, we touch base on all of that. Touch base on all of that. So we're always, like I said, not only do we try to show up to places to, perform and give them an opportunity to have solid quality on their show, but then also we're trying to pour it back into the people that call those particular companies their home base.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great value if we can get all you guys and pool all your knowledge together. A lot of people can definitely learn a lot of things that'll help them be able to expand their brand and hopefully achieve the same kind of heights that you guys have. With that said, we've covered a lot of ground here. Before letting you go, and I'm very appreciative of the time that you gave us, I want you to let our fans know where they can find you, social medias, shows that are coming up, anything cool that you got going on. I'm giving you the floor to basically let people know what you got going on.
Absolutely. So you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and unfortunately TikTok as well. You can find me at the Rev Ron Hunt. Just type that in, at the Rev Ron Hunt. Also, if you guys are looking for any merchandise, I am on What a Maneuver as well as pro wrestling tees. You can go to at the Rev Ron Hunt, find everything there. And then for the shows coming up, your boys ready for it best, but I want to add some more championships to it. So you can find me at Eclipse Pro Wrestling, Renegade Wrestling Alliance. The list goes on. Then also we're going to be hitting some other areas in the near future. Within Texas, that will be the Christian company that's out there, Christian Wrestling Federation, that's out there, CWF with Rob Vaughn, and we keep it going, man. So anywhere that there is wrestling, you could find me. Just tell your promoters to hit me up, and I want to lock it up with the best. I'm challenging you all. And you never know. I might even put one of my titles on the line in your state.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So promoters, do your job. Book this man. Let's get him everywhere in the country, defending those championships. Let's forget the country. Let's get him a bunch of different countries in the world. Let's get more flags on that championship like you were talking about.
We're trying to get more flags on it, man. You said it right. We're trying to get more flags.
That's right. I love that concept. Absolutely love that. Well, like I said, I do hope I get to share the ring with you in the future. I'm glad I got to share this interview with you, and I'm sure all of our fans are loving it. And if ever you want to come back on again, we will gladly have you back on in a heartbeat, my man. It has been a pleasure.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your time, and thank you once again.
Thank you. Well, this concludes another amazing episode of Jofo in the Ring. For my guest, the Rev Ron Hunt, I am Jeremy Prophet, reminding you, as we always do, that wrestling is life.
So, Jofo, I'm a gargle a shot for Kurt Hennig, everybody, before we go.
Oh, no.
Jofo, thank you, guys.